morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Welcome everybody to MagnifEssence in Motion. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, and I'm delighted today because we're going to be talking about something that I think is really, really important. Most of us, I include myself in that group, of course, we have this voice in our heads. We may not always recognize it immediately, but often that voice has, let's say, critical things to say about us. That's certainly been the case for me. Although I've noticed that because I've done so much work on myself over the last, 25 years now, the intensity of that voice has really dropped down. And now I do still get criticisms going on in my head, but usually they're more of the form of questions. Like, are you sure you want to be doing this? Is this really safe for you? Is this something that people are going to like? It's not so much that you're an idiot if you try this, which I used to get a lot. But anyway, what we're going to be talking about today is this idea of, first of all, becoming aware of the voices in our head. And secondly, finding ways to reframe what that voice is trying to do and transcend the negativity and bring ourselves more into a space of having an ego mind that supports us and is an ally for our life, like a kind of a co-pilot or a navigator. And of course, to help me do this today, I have invited my good friend and my colleague, Sara Jane. She is a Reiki Master, a voice of Reiki specialist. She's the Gift of Healing host and she's the founder and the primary host of that program. And she does all kinds of amazing things. She writes books. She's amazing. So please welcome my good friend, Sara Jane, back onto the program. Good morning, Sara. Welcome and Happy New Year.
Hi, David. There we go. Camera's working. Yes, and Happy New Year to you too. Thank you so much. Yeah. I think with all of us, we don't realize how much we do. We've got an assortment of things that we do, and we just do them without thinking about it.
Yeah, that's right. It's what I kind of call it autopilot, or some people might refer to it as sleepwalking. And that's okay. I mean, it's not really to put a judgment on, it's just to notice. That's really what it's about. I just did an article on my Substack account called Awake and Aware, in which I talked about that very thing, that idea of when you're not awake and aware of what's going on in your life, that's what you're doing. You're sleepwalking. You're on autopilot. And that's not to say that autopilot's a bad thing. As I've shared with people before, imagine if you always had to think every moment, okay, left foot forward, shift weight, right foot forward. Man, you'd never get anywhere. You wouldn't get out of bed. So thankfully, we do have the ability to take like skills like that we learn, driving a car, walking, just doing stuff, and putting the little itty bitty details of the task into the background. So that allows our conscious minds to focus on other things while we're doing stuff that, we just kind of take for granted. What do you think? Do you have that experience yourself?
The ability to multitask.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know about other people, I'd heard this said many years ago, but when I have my gratitudes, I do, of a morning, of an evening, and various other things, that to a certain degree I'm in autopilot when I'm doing those, but they are sort of coming from the mind.
Right.
And it's very much a matter of, sometimes you say, if you start yawning or sneezing or coughing while you're doing that, it's your mind that is trying to distract you, that is trying to take you out, because what we're doing is actually quite positive. And of course, that's the ego monkey mind, sort of, take you away from that, move you away from that. And it's just like, no. And I was just thinking, you know what? And I find that happening. And I do find that happening. So I'm sort of multitasking in respect to, I'm actually saying words that I know are coming from the mind, the positive mind, for want of a better way of putting it. And there's another aspect of my mind which is trying to chip in and interfere.
Right. Yeah. As you're speaking about that, I'm thinking about like my meditations, when I do meditations, one of the challenges that I've had with meditation is trying to not get engaged with thoughts that happen in my mind. And that is not always easy. I can be sitting there and I can feel this sense of silence for about 1/10 of a second. And then all of a sudden, a thought pops into my head. It's like I created an empty space and now there's a thought trying to fill it. And the problem isn't that the thoughts show up. The problem is that sometimes I focus on the thoughts and start to engage with them and create a whole dialogue with the thoughts. And that becomes like a whole drama. And it takes me a while to realize, oh my God, here I go again. I'm caught in that drama. Thank you so much for the thought. It's beautiful. I'm going to put you aside and look at you later. So it is possible to do that, but it is challenging, I will admit. And so what I have begun to do now, you talked about your gratitude practice. Just having that regular practice of saying things that you're grateful for. And I'm sure you don't say it as a kind of a rote memorization. I'm sure you say when you're saying, I'm grateful for this breath. This breath feels so wonderful and delicious. I'm grateful for this house that I live in. You know, whatever other things that might come up. When you say them, you're quite present. But as you say, if you're doing this enough and it's becoming a practice, it may drift into the background and then some of these other thoughts will pop up and it's like it's Mr. Distraction Theater here.
Yep. Yeah. And the classic example was this morning, because sort of I had a situation where I actually don't have a LinkedIn page at the moment, in spite of the fact that I've got over 8,000 people I'm connected with, because of something that happened last night. And they are now looking into it. And it's something somebody else did, which I probably shouldn't have clicked on. But I thought I was safe because I thought it was from LinkedIn. And so my mind this morning, as much as I was trying to be in that positive space, was very much a matter of what if you can't, what if, it's just like, please mind, I release to the light with love. And it's just, we find our own way of just saying, do you know what? There is nothing I can do about it at this moment in time. So there's no point in thinking about it. So it's, I release to the light with love. Do you know, whatever's meant to be will be, whatever's meant to happen is going to happen. And as frustrating as I find technology at times, and I admit that, because I'm not really technologically minded. Right. My monkey mind is very good at those type of things, and it's just like when I catch it, it's just like. And this morning it was very definitely. Do you know what? I release this to the light with love. Let it go.
That's a beautiful statement. I like that. I release this to the light with love. That's beautiful. I like that. I'm gonna steal that and start using it.
Yeah. But it's with all of these things, you can just say I release it. But for me, and it's something sort of somewhere I heard again, it was just like, if you release something with love, then you're wrapping it in love. So the negativity within it isn't then. So I'm not releasing the negativity out there to be negative for somebody else and sort of whatever. I'm wrapping it in love so that it remains unable to do anything to anybody else, and I'm letting it go from me.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, Wendy just says she loves that saying too, and she's going to try it. So there you go. You got a couple of people who have, you should sell it now, right?
No, I'm quite happy to give it away.
Right. Well, I feel the same way. I mean, I think that spiritual truths are not something that I own, and I'm not the only person who can speak them. And so if I happen to say it and you resonate with it, great. That's good. That means that it's coming through and you can use it as well. I believe all spiritual truths should be free. Obviously there's some work that we have to do to spread the word, and maybe we deserve to get paid for that, but not for the truth itself. That is something that belongs to everybody. And it's freely available. I just wanted to notice that Wendy also said, multitasking is like the zoomies can't sit still, like speeding down the highway at 100 miles per hour in thoughts. And I think that's a great visual. And how many times have I been speeding down the highway and all of a sudden ended up in a place and I thought, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
You know, I'm now 50 miles further down the road and I don't remember anything of the last 50 miles. You know,
I
it's
get
like, yeah, that's happened to me many times. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? How does that even work? You know, so I can resonate with that. All right. So you talked about one beautiful little practice that you have. I release this to the light with love. And I also love what you're saying about, you know, you've got this negativity building up in your body and you don't want to release it as negativity because you don't want it to have a negative impact on other people. You know, I do the same thing, although I've used different words. I imagine sometimes my negativity rising up in a what do you call it? A weather balloon, just kind of slowly rising up into the atmosphere and then dissipating to be recycled as neutral energy. That's how I view it. I don't necessarily want to force my idea of love onto other people, but I do want to just release it, have no impact whatsoever, just be completely neutral. That's how I view it. And that way, I think other people can still engage with that energy without having a negative impact or without having an impact of any kind. They can choose for themselves the kind of impact that they want to have with it.
You know, I've heard it sort of said that obviously all the negative stuff that's going on in this world, as it goes out into the world, it will come back and it will affect. And so what are we going through at the moment? We're going through earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and storms. And I just look at it and I think, yeah, we've created that with all the negative energy that is going on in this world. And the more of us that can connect and keep our energies as high as possible, but we're still all here to have a human experience.
Of course.
And that is really, really important. So I try not to get cross with myself because I'm still here to have that. It keeps me human. But obviously, the more I can decrease it, but still remain in my humanness, that's the important thing to me.
Right. I agree. Yeah. I just wanted to welcome Alexis into the room. Welcome, Alexis. You're welcome to share your comments or your questions in the chat below. And, you know, we'll do our best to answer them as they come up. So thank you. Yeah, so the idea of monkey mind, I think everybody relates to that idea. Almost everybody, I'm sure, has a voice in their heads. I certainly I certainly do. And I remember when I was younger, that voice initially sounded an awful lot like my mother. I remember when I was a kid, it sounded a lot like my mother. But as I grew older, it shifted and changed, and it took on a character of its own. And eventually I recognized that it isn't my mother, it isn't anybody else, it's me. It's my own self, my own, I guess, my little self that's doing all this stuff. And so what I have learned is that it doesn't help to get angry with that little self. It doesn't help to have judgments about that little self. It does help, however, for me, or it did help at the time, to recognize that this little self is just a scared little boy inside of me, scared about whatever dangers that it imagines or he imagines exist in the world, and trying to stay safe. And so the whole ego mind structure, the ego mind is designed specifically to help us navigate our way through this physical world. And part of that has to do with being safe. And so you'll hear people telling us, your ego mind is designed to keep you safe. Only it has dysfunctional ways of doing that because the ways that it learned happened when you were very young. And that's part of the problem that we all have to deal with. So my little boy bully, if you like, I'm going to call him the bully. He is trying to keep, himself safe. He's trying to keep me safe in the process, but he's using all these old style ways of doing it that may have worked when I was a kid, but don't work so well anymore. I have this 5-year-old bodyguard taking care of a 70-year-old man. How is that going to work? Not too well, I don't think. So what I'm saying is I have to bring love, gentleness, compassion, and forgiveness to that little boy, and to say, I understand where these ideas came from. I understand that you were trying to keep yourself safe. It makes perfect sense to me. So you're not wrong for having done that. But as you can see, I'm an adult now, and I don't need that same kind of strategy for keeping safe. I appreciate it, and I would love it when you warn me about danger. That's great. But please allow me to look at it and decide the right way to handle it. And let's work together as partners. That's kind of how I do it, and it's really helped me a lot. You may find some blessing in that as well.
And I think that's just it. It's lovely that each one of us finds our own unique way. For me, I don't necessarily see it as the child within, but I do see it as the ego, the monkey mind, that its first thing, it was given that role of being our protector. So when we were daft enough not to listen, don't touch that, that's hot. Sort of, because we don't listen to the adults. We don't pick the wisdom that they've got. We have to learn it for ourselves. And we do have to learn so much of life for ourselves rather than learning from other people's wisdom. It becomes ours, and then the younger generations don't listen to us either. It's ongoing. But for me, it was a matter of saying sort of to that mind, that monkey mind, that ego, thank you. Thank you so much for all the protection and the learning. I'm an adult now, and you've taught me well.
Yep.
And it's time for things to change.
Yep.
It really is. And that's where I know I've shared this on programs with you before, about changing the role. And I'm sorry, business people, especially accountants, but I put it in the fact that at the moment, your monkey mind's about being like the accountant. No, you can't do this, you can't do that, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, etc., etc. And it's all over the place with what you can't do. Because accountants are very good at doing that. No, you haven't got the money to do that, etc. So it's not necessarily always about money, but it's about keeping a business safe and going. Right. And so it's about keeping life safe and going. And so it's saying, thank you. I'd like to change your role. And I know some people might say this isn't a promotion, but it's a much happier role. I'd like
actually,
to change
as you say that, why not have a talk with your ego mind and say, I'd like to give you a promotion.
Yeah.
Why not deal with it that way and make it feel like it's an improvement in... I love that idea.
But it is, for me, it is about the improvement. I'd like to make you the personal assistant to my heart.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And it's important. Yes, there's still going to be the aspect of safety. But more to the point is, you are going to help me to make my heart choices happen.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you a happier, more positive, hopefully more fulfilling role than the one you've got, where actually it's just, what are you doing? Come on, mind, you can do better than this, so because I still get that, in spite of the fact I have promoted it to being the personal assistant to my heart, I still get those bits, and it was just like, oh, not again.
Not again. I know. Yeah, it's exasperating sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just noticed, I wanted to acknowledge Mary here. She said, I often feel like I hear many voices inside of my head warring for my attention. And it does seem like it's a war sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah, you pay attention to me or else kind of thing. And she said, sometimes it's the voice that echoes my mom's judgment. And sometimes it's my own from the programming. That's exactly how I see it. And programming, that's a great word, because it's what happens to all of us. I mean, we go through life, we come here as beautiful, magnificent babies full of piss and vinegar and ready to take on the world. And we have our mission. And then very quickly, the adults and the well-meaning people in our lives start teaching us about how we're supposed to show up and what we're supposed to do and supposed to this and supposed to that. And and we absorb it all because we're like sponges at that stage, you know. And so it really takes a major effort on our part to recognize, first of all, at some point in our adulthood, that we have been programmed, and being willing to forgive all of those who did the programming, and forgiving ourselves for accepting the programming, and then allowing ourselves to, as you say, Sara, release it with love to the light, so that we can then become who we really are meant to be and begin to express and experience all of that, because that's what we're really here to do.
It's important to realize that, yes, we are a sponge, and our parents, and I suppose our teachers and our grandparents and aunts and uncles and whatever, those people that are around us, they can only teach us from their understanding, their perspective, their experiences. And an awful lot of what we are taught is purely from watching what goes on within our family environment, watching and listening. So I don't know about you, but it's don't do as I do as I say.
Well, I got that from my mom all the time. Yeah.
But of course, what we're watching is what they do and what they say, rather than, and they aren't living what they're telling us.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
are we really going to listen to what they're saying for us to do when they're not not doing it
Yeah,
themselves?
I think I used to make fun of my mom. When I got older, when I was in my late teens, I think I remember saying something like, "Yeah, right, Mom, don't do as I do as I say, unless I tell you to do as I do." Talk about confusing, right? So this is really, really good, because we've been talking about the kinds of thoughts that we get in our ego mind. And I think for most of us, it wouldn't be unfair to label most of those thoughts as negative. Now, what I would really like to do is just ask the question, what is a negative thought? What does it look like? What kind of language does it use? Can you give some examples? If you folks here who are on the live show, just if you can think of something, write it in the chat so we get some ideas. Sara, do you have some examples of how it might have worked?
100%, because we're very good at putting things into the negative. I don't want, and I'm just trying to think of it. But when we say something, think about how you're framing what you're saying.
Right.
And it's finding a way to keep out the don'ts and the nots and all those negative words. Or what is it? And I know, again, you've said that you can think there's considerably more than this, and it was quite a few years ago now. But my youngest sister said, in the English dictionary, there are over 6,000 negative words to around 2,000 positive words. So is it hardly surprising? And so many people around us talk within a negative. Criticizing ourselves, Wendy, make me harder on myself. Yes, of course we do. But it's thinking about our terminology. And I wish I've over the past couple of days, I've had so many thoughts pop through my head and they've all disappeared. Thank you very much indeed. But it is thinking about framing. A friend of mine a few years back, he said, well, what would you really like to do? And I was so good at saying, well, I don't want to do this, don't want to do that, don't want to do the other. I came up with all the don'ts, but not with what I would really like to do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's how we're very good at answering questions, by not actually really giving an answer at all.
Exactly. Yeah. This is fascinating. And you were talking about the positive versus the negative words and stuff. I remember hearing years ago about an experiment. It was a scientific study, I guess, where these researchers were following kids around in some kindergarten classes. And they were just observing the kinds of, I guess, the kinds of feedback they were getting from their teachers, from their fellow students, and all the rest. And the mind-boggling thing that they discovered was that about 85% of the feedback that the students got was negative feedback. Feedback about how they were not doing things right, and so on and so on and so on. And only about 15% positive feedback. So we're exposed to this. And I mean, this was just one small data point. I'm sure that across our entire society, the numbers are probably very similar. But the fact of the matter is, we are so quick to criticize and so slow to give credit. Think about this. If you have a problem with an Amazon order, I'll bet you have no problem complaining about it. But how often do the Amazon orders come through on time? And have you ever contacted them and said, thanks, it was great service? I sure don't do that very often. And part of that has to do with our expectation, right? When somebody says they're going to do this and they're going to deliver, in a day, well, then you expect that to happen. They've set the expectation. And if it doesn't happen, that's when you complain, right? So they set us up for this in all kinds of different ways, and we create our own, self-fulfilling prophecies as a result. But there's another thing that I wanted to share about this. You talked about I don't want, blah, blah, blah. You've heard of this story of a psychologist telling people, don't think of a pink elephant. And what happens? In your mind, you immediately start thinking of a pink elephant. Why is that? Because your brain, your mind, can't tell the difference between think of a pink elephant and don't think of a pink elephant. In both cases, you have to think of the pink elephant in order to be able to deal with the original issue. So this is where your idea of reframing comes in. Instead of saying don't think of a pink elephant, try think of a blue giraffe. You see, what's happened is I've completely reframed it. I've taken the pink elephant out of the picture altogether, and now I'm focusing my attention on something completely different. It happens to be an animal, and it happens to be blue, but I could have said think of a beautiful omelet instead. Doesn't matter. Just change the frame. And so I use this technique all the time. If I notice myself saying something like, I really want to lose weight. Well, wanna is nothing. That's not, I can want all I want, and that doesn't give me what I need. I just create this idea of wanting. So what I do instead is I say, so there's a desire, that's great. How can I frame it so that I actually move toward it? And so instead of saying I want to lose weight, I choose a lifestyle in which I exercise and I eat beautiful, delicious, healthy foods, and I let my weight take care of itself. I've completely changed the frame of that story. And anybody can do this. It's easy. But you can take out the negative, or you can say, usually it might have started because I step on the scale and I say, oh, damn it, I'm overweight. I am overweight. Well, now I've just created an identity about being overweight. And who knows what other, I'm a fat slob, whatever other things might come into my head as a result of that statement. All of those are negative phrases that are telling me I've got to do something. So shift it, find a way to change it. And it might not be true in this moment today that I actually do choose a life of health and happiness and so forth. But if I start saying that enough and I start expressing gratitude for that kind of life, it's easier to move towards it. I take little bitty baby steps towards that goal. So, sorry, I've been talking way too long here. I want to give you a chance to speak up here again, Sarah. Sorry.
You talked about the lose weight. And there was something, again, a few years ago that I sort of heard or read. And it was somebody talking about weight loss. And they said, if you lose something, you look for it. So every time you talk about losing weight,
Oh, that's
even if you do
interesting.
lose it, you go looking for it. And so many people fail to stay with the weight loss, and it comes back. But if you let the weight go, so in other words, think about car keys. If you lose them, you'll go looking for them.
Right.
But if you sell the car, you let the car go, you hand the keys over, you don't go looking for it. So it's, again, that's another thing for changing your terminology, as you said, but it's not about losing the weight. It's about letting it go. I am free of this excess weight. Sort of, and if you feel you have to release it to the light with love, then do it. But obviously, as you said, you have to do the exercise, the healthy eating, etc. You're not just thinking that you're going to let that weight go and you're continuing to eat the chocolate and the biscuits and the cakes, etc. That won't help you.
Right. Well, it's interesting that we're talking about weight loss and exercise and stuff like that. And I think it's important. I mean, I know for myself that when I first started thinking about doing exercise, I had this, oh, really? That's work. I'm going to have to do that. Those are the thoughts that are coming up in my head. And so there's a resistance to actually stepping forward and doing what I know is actually good for me, right? If I can just get past that first voice that says, oh, do I have to? I can, there's all kinds of different ways I can do that. I can say, no, of course you don't have to. That's not, but you get to if you want to. Think about this. You get to go and meet some people and try something new and find out how your body reacts to certain kinds of movements. See what happens. It's an experiment. It's a learning opportunity. And what I've also learned about exercise is I do exercise regularly now. I mean, I'm walking every day and I'm doing yoga every day. There are some days when I say, I just don't want to do yoga today. And I've noticed that when I just say, okay, great, I hear you don't want to do it, let's do it anyway. When I go and do it anyway, I notice how good I feel afterwards. It's like the exercise, I may actually find that it's challenging, it's difficult. I can feel my muscles working and all this kind of stuff. But as I'm doing it and I feel my body responding, I'm saying, wow, I can still actually do this. This is really good. You notice? So the shift starts happening while I am shifting. It's hard to explain, but that's just something that I have noticed. And I want people to understand that and maybe take it and try it for themselves.
I love what's going on in the chat here. And I'm trying to listen to you and read it at the same time. But Mary's just said, that's so powerful. I really agree with what you two said, especially on releasing the negative framing entirely. That's something I felt resistant to when I talk with ChatGPT. And it keeps on using negative-based affirmations like, you are not broken. So you're whole, you're complete, you're perfect, just the way you are. Right. Those are the terms we should be using, which feels just awful compared to something like, you are wonderful. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also about thinking about, for me anyway, how often do you praise yourself? How often do you say, well done, you've done really well today, rather than waiting for somebody else to do it? Right. All those things we're waiting for other people to say to us, we should be saying to ourselves.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Do you know what? Even, because I've been through that phase of coming so close to a nervous breakdown, of having, I think it was so close to having ME, where sort of I got up in the morning and all I could do to actually get out of bed, not having the energy to do anything. And it was literally having to take a break between doing everything. I think I was off work for 2 months, and it took me 2 months to get back to work full time. That is how bad it was, but not as bad as those people who end up in wheelchairs, etc. Right. And it's very much about, do you know what? If you just got out of bed this morning, congratulate yourself. If you'd written a list, you got halfway down it, congratulate yourself for what you did achieve, rather than berating yourself for not getting it all done. How we speak to ourselves is an absolute priority, because every cell in our being feels what we say to ourselves. So if you turn around and say, oh, really? Did you really not manage to get that done today, or that done today, or that done today? Whereas, do you know what? I am so proud of you. Well done. You're telling your body, you're telling your mind, you're telling every aspect within you that you are proud of you. I love you. I care so much about you. I'm going to do what I can to support you. But I would also, you've used that word want so often, and it's a word I hate. As a child, I'm sure so many of us heard this. I want, don't get. And then you get told, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I am 67. I will be 68. Not too long. And to be perfectly honest, it was probably only a year, 2 years ago that I was out for a walk. And this is always my best time for light bulb moments. And it suddenly dawned on me that I want is a demand. It's a very negative word. And need is another negative word. And I've heard it said, I want leaves you with the wanting. I need leaves you with the needing.
I am absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
But if you don't ask, well, you don't ask with a want or a need. Yes, please, I would like. Thank you. If somebody offers, but please don't ask me what do I want, because I heard that so often. Ask me what I want, and the answer's nothing.
Well, I think so. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, Sarah. Sorry. We have a limited number of words here in the English language to describe something. I prefer the word I desire, because I'm feeling an attraction to something, or I'm feeling something being called to me. However, I desire is not something we generally use in conversation. I would like, that's a kind of a future conditional kind of statement, implying that maybe sometime in the future I might like to have that. But right now, in this moment, I desire. This is what I desire. And I don't mind using the word want, but I always remind myself that if I just simply stay in the want, then I'm stuck there. I'm not going to get anything just simply by continuing to want, because want by itself is another word for lack, right?
Yeah.
And so it's okay to use the word, but recognize that you're using it and that you're saying, oh, there's a desire. So let me see what I can do about that. How can I bring that into my life? How can I attract that into my life? And by the way, that question, how can I attract it into my life? You're just putting something out there to the universe, and guess what? It'll give you an answer. It's magic. Because, well, we call it magic because we don't have a scientific explanation for it. But it's amazing, really. So I don't want to make anybody wrong for using the word want or need. But by the way, I just happen to agree with you. I agree with you in your understanding of those words. So just recognize that you're using them and ask yourself, is it really true? Do I need this? Probably not, because if I need something, then I probably have an addiction to it. If I have an addiction to it, then there's a different kind of a problem for me to deal with. So think about what you're saying. Think about the words you use and try to be more intentional, I guess, is what I would say. So
I tend to try and use the words, wish, require, would like, so words you were using, but I try very hard not to use those words.
that's fine.
And I really do. And it takes a lot, because everywhere you go, everybody, and I hear people saying it, and I want to cringe, and it's just like, okay, but I really do, and I have said to people, please try not to use those words. And yeah, as you said, want is a lack, but need is a lack. Desire is truth. It's just like, trust yourself and allow yourself to find different ways to frame a sentence that keeps out as much negative as possible. And it's a real battle. It really is a battle.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you want to have a real challenge in terms of language, try to make your statements without any judgment. Now, I don't mean to say that judgment is only about another person, but let me give you this. Here's an example. This is a black phone cover. Was there any judgment in that statement?
Not today.
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. You might see something completely different. I am holding what appears to be a black phone, a phone with a black cover. Even the word black is still a judgment word. Because is it really black, or is it just dark gray, or what is it? Do you see what I'm saying? Our words can be very, very limiting. And any adjective is by its very nature, and adverbs as well, by the way, are simply, we use those as extra descriptors, but descriptors are nothing more than our judgments, our interpretations of something. That's all they are. Even the fact this is a phone is up for debate. Maybe it's not a phone at all. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But, we treat certain things as facts when really they're nothing more than globally accepted agreements. The sky is blue. Well, is it? We have agreements about things. We decide not to argue about that because most of the time the sky is blue is a fairly accurate statement, right? So this is what I'm saying. If you want to get really nitpicky, you can. You can get nitpicky about every single word in our language. And it's not going away anytime soon. The only way this stuff goes away is when we can stop talking altogether and begin communicating strictly with our energetic vibration. And so far, I don't know too many people who can do that. So we're stuck with words for a while.
That's what I love about light language. I have no idea what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, and it's quite beautiful too, isn't it?
And it's the feeling of the words rather than being able to understand them. And I love the fact that they can't be translated. And I know some people say they can translate them. I choose not to go there, to be perfectly honest.
I just heard you say, I don't want to translate them.
I know, that's why I changed it. I choose to stay in that place of it being what it is. It's pure essence, rather than someone translating it. And when we put the English term or the German or the French or the whatever language to it, that's when this can then misinterpret it. I see it as being the language of our soul. And our heart and our soul understand it. And the people who've said, I don't know what you just said, but I really felt that. Someone else said to me one time, that's been filed away for when I require it. And he probably said need, actually.
Yeah, right.
And people who felt the energy of it. And occasionally somebody has said, when I remember singing it, and I was giving a talk and I actually sang some. And one of the ladies said, that sounded like a lullaby.
Well, now that you've brought up light language, obviously we're going to have a sample here, but I'm not going to do it right now. I want you to close us out with that. Okay. We still got a few more minutes, and I want to stay on the topic of, the monkey mind and the ego mind, and finding ways to transcend our self-talk to improve it and make it more life affirming rather than critical. And so there was one other item that you put on your talking point list that I really wanted to come back to, and I think it had something to do with the idea of when you have subtle self-doubts. And I know nowadays for me that happens more often than the outright critical voice that I used to have all the time. It's now much more subtle. My mind asking me questions like, "Are you really sure this is the right path?" Something like that. That just sows a little bit of doubt into me when I have that kind of question come up. Do you have some other examples of the kinds of subtle self-doubt things that you were talking about?
I think a whole load of things, sort of, you're asked to do something, or you're asked, do you wish to participate in something? There are so many different things. And I'm a great believer in getting the dowsing pendulum out and asking it, because there are times when I know I'm not allowed to take this out because it won't answer me. And there are other times when it is so right, because it's like, it's going to tell you nothing.
Well, what
Sarah.
is this that you're showing us here?
It's a dowsing pendulum.
A dowsing pendulum. Okay.
And it can give you yes and no answers, or nothing at all.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right, my dowsing pendulum. Please, can you just show the audience a yes? So can you see that it's going backwards and forwards?
Yeah.
Okay. Please, can you show the audience a no? So it's going more side to side. So you have to ask a question that is a yes/no answer. So very simply, is my name Sara Jane? Okay. Am I talking to Scott Holmes? And you can see my hand is perfectly still. I'm not moving that. The pendulum is moving itself. So am I talking to David McLeod? Yes. So there are times when I will frame a question, because you can do it 3 times. I will reframe the question so that I get yes in some answers and no in others, but it's still giving me the equivalent of the same answer. But I mean, there was something recently and it was just like, no, I'm not going to ask the pendulum, because I know the answer. I know what I have got to do and what I have got to say. It just wasn't easy to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not going to stop you from having to do the things that aren't easy for you, but it can help you and support you. Okay. Just to say with this, I do trust it. I always have trusted it. And many years ago, I was doing a mind, body, spirit fair. I had a stand, and there was a young girl. Her mother had gone off to have a reading or something, and she came and she was looking at all the bits and pieces, because I'd got some crystals and things, and I'd got dowsing pendulums there. And I was talking to her, and she said that she was going to do some activity that afternoon. And I'd asked her name, and I said to the pendulum, does so-and-so enjoy that activity? And the pendulum went no. I looked at this young girl, and she looked at me, and she was startled. She said, no, I don't. I had no idea. The fact she was doing it, I was expecting a yes, and we got a no. Whether the encouragement to let her parents know was listened to, I will never know. But you can trust this. This is why you ask some yeses and some nos. So you can get a yes, no to the same thing. You just reframe the question.
Right.
And so I do that a lot. Not necessarily every day, but when things crop up, and if I'm in any doubt, then I will do that to support. And there are times when I'm thinking, yes, and there are times when I'm thinking, is it no? I don't necessarily always get the answers I'm expecting.
Right.
But we can support ourselves. Not everybody can use a pendulum, but there are different ways, muscle testing that a lot of people do, to ask the body. Because at the end of the day, with that type of thing, you are asking yourself, your higher self, from the heart, from the soul. And so, yes, that can come through the body. There's one by holding your fingers together, and if you can pull it apart, I'm just trying to think which way round it is. If you pull it apart, it's a no. If you can't pull it apart, it's a yes. So there's this, you can do it with your fingers. There are other things that people can learn. It's learning to trust yourself. And yes, I do trust myself, but I still ask.
You know, this is fascinating. One of the techniques that I use, I prefer open-ended questions because yes, no questions are a little bit too easy for me to game the system. And so instead, I like asking myself open-ended questions. So for example, in relation, let's say somebody invites me to participate in some activity or whatever. And maybe I have my own initial reaction to that, but I'd rather have my soul give an answer to this. So I might sit down with my journal and I might just ask the question, in relation to Sarah's invitation, what is the universe, what is my life calling me to do right now? And then I'll just write whatever comes. And sometimes I'll get a clear answer out of that, and sometimes I'll get maybe more confusion. But the thing is, if I keep writing, eventually it comes clear. You know, and I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head, but this happens enough times that I look at the result that I've written and I can feel my heart, you know, being pulled in one direction. That to me is a clearer, this is the yes over here. And that yes doesn't include Sarah's invitation right now. You see? And so that's how it works for me. That feels a little more genuine, and I'm not going to just say yes to you because I want you to like me more. Do you see? That's kind of how I approach it. I'm not going to say no to you just because, you know, I'm so used to saying yes at the slightest thing, you know. So it's a practice. It's something that each of us has to find our own way and choose a path that makes sense. You know, I do like the idea of the dowsing pendulum, but I think I would find a way. Maybe I would hold it on a stand or something, and just put my hand on the stand so my energy can go in through the stand and to the pendulum, and try not to move that stand at all, and just ask the questions and see what happens. I'm worried that if I put it on my finger, I'm going to start, you know, going back and forth that way. I'm going to be cheating the system. That's what I'm worried about. So,
but okay, as you can see, my hand was not moving. It was purely the pendulum that moved. And if I felt my hand was moving, I've seen some people using the dowsing pendulum and they're moving the hand, and I'm thinking, I don't know. That's the way they've been taught, but I don't know that resonates with me. That their hand is moving, and therefore, are they actually controlling from the mind rather than from the heart, the soul?
Right.
From the higher
self.
And
you know, you were talking about the muscle testing. I mean, that's another one that easily can be gamed if you're not careful. And this is why I prefer somebody who's a practitioner of this asks questions silently, right? And doesn't speak them out loud, and then does the muscle test on a different person. And that way it is pure energetic communication. It's not, you know, Hey, I want you to be strong right now. I'm not going to say that. I want you to be strong right now to give me a yes. No, it has to be done in a way that is scientifically verifiable, that you're not gaming the system. That's really the important thing. So
there are so many different things out there that can support us. And it is for each and every one of us to find the things that resonate with us.
right.
And I love having these conversations because we don't all think the same. We don't all use the same tools because we found the ones that work for us.
Right.
And by sharing that, we can sort of guide people, well, not guide, suggest to people, because I'm a great person for suggesting things rather than saying, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. This is what I do. This is what works for me. It's a suggestion for you. And that's what I love about conversations, is that we can do just that for people. And I hope that sort of what we've shared here helps people to think about how they're thinking, what they're thinking, and the reframing of those thoughts to support, I suppose, a much more positive but happier, content way of life, because the negativity doesn't help us to be happy and content.
No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, and thank you for that that invitation at the end there. It's been an absolutely great conversation, Sarah, as always, and I always enjoy our times together. And I'm fortunate because I get to be able to spend time with you at least once a month, which is great, and sometimes more often than that. And so it's fabulous. But I think we're getting close to the top of the hour. I want to just close out this episode, and I would like to give you the first opportunity to say a few words, if you will, about any final words about this episode, and maybe close us out with some of that beautiful light language.
I think I've just given those final words in English.
Okay.
So let's just go into a little bit of light language. And folks, if you're sort of listening to this, my suggestion is just pop your roots that are in the base of your feet or from the base of your spine down into Mother Earth, deep into Mother Earth, anchoring into Mother Earth. And she is sending up her love and her protection through your roots, into your feet, into your whole body, totally surrounding and protecting you. This isn't about what you hear, it is about what you feel. Yun tanai ka che ma nantare ki chi ante e loya katana e che tiroya kante na che oi atakana kate e nokoroma kata e noreanaka na katarana e echinio kamatai irora na katani e shor oya katayana e niktaranaka ishtorakate na at naka tema. Namaste.
Beautiful. That one was very melodic. I love it. Melodic and rhythmic. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. And thank you all for being here today. It's been an amazing conversation. I just want to remind you that the recording of this and every other episode is on my website at MagnifEssence.com. I invite you to go check those out and watch them. And they're also on my YouTube channel, so you can find them there as well. And I want to wish you, before I close out, I do my final thing is my 3-sentence mantra. It's called the Life Mastery Mantra. It's very, very simple. 3 sentences, easy to remember. I encourage you to give this a try for yourself. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. Well, thank you all for being here. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. And I'll see you next time on MagnifEssence in Motion. Bye-bye for now.